The former president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, is facing 27 years in prison for his attempt to overturn an election. Bolsonaro was convicted by Brazil's Supreme Court yesterday for conspiring against democracy and attempting a coup in the wake of his 2022 election defeat, creating quite the contrast to the U.S., where Donald Trump managed to dodge almost all accountability for fomenting the big lie and the January 6th insurrection. A new op-ed in the New York Times puts it rather plainly. The Brazilian Supreme Court did what the U.S. Senate and federal courts tragically failed to do, bring a former president who assaulted democracy to justice.
All of my Brazilian friends will remind us that this is a country that has seen a military dictatorship in my lifetime, and that means that the stakes for them were not theoretical. They were very, very real.
They were high. And look, I think that a conviction is not a cure-all here, right? It doesn't mean that the polarization is gone that exists in Brazil. Former President Bolsonaro has a lot of actually support for his brand of politics, if you will, his ideology, particularly in Brazil, particularly among evangelicals and more conservative individuals. It's apparent that he also has support here in the United States. I just want to note this is what Secretary Rubio had to say. I'll read a portion of it. He says the political persecutions by sanctioned human rights abuser Alexandre de Moraes continue as he and others on Brazil's Supreme Court have unjustly ruled to imprison former President Jair Bolsonaro. The United States will respond accordingly to this witch hunt. So, I mean, he has support of what at one point was the greatest one of the greatest democracies in the history of the world, leader of the free world, the United States of America. But I will say this was really, 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 really important for Brazil to do. And the coup that was attempted, people have to remember, on January 6th, the people that took up arms against the Capitol to disrupt the certification of the votes, they went home. No one was arrested at the Capitol that day, but the opposite happened in Brazil. They literally had people on zip ties on the curb sending a message. And now this conviction sends another message.
Well, and I just want to underscore two things that Simone said there, Michael. Why are we talking about this story outside of the fact that Brazil is a huge global power and what happens in Brazil is important inherently? It's also important when you hold it side by side what has happened here in the United States and the parallelisms with what happened on January 6th and the aftermath of January 6th cannot be denied, whether it is what happened from the legislative branch, whether it is what happened in the judiciary. This is a choose your own ending with a very different ending. But to underscore the second point Simone made, it's also about the fact that the president of the United States has not only criticized these calls for accountability out of Brazil. It is the fact that he and his administration have actively sought to punish people who have held Bolsonaro accountable. In addition to what Simone read to you from the Secretary of State, you have the fact that this administration hit the entire country of Brazil with 50% tariffs over Bolsonaro. It is within the right of the President of the United States to criticize other countries, other governments, but to retaliate against them is a different level.
And it's our coffee. The coffee done went up, Michael. Messing around with Bolsonaro. The coffee is up. For why? No real reason.
I got nothing.
Why?
But
well,
Michael, you do have something, because here you actually have an example.
At the end of the day, conviction is the message is accountability. The Supreme Court of Brazil respects the rule of law, and they respect the process. And most importantly, they demand accountability. And in America, it just don't matter. They don't care. And so when people look at this story, they say, so what? And that tells us a lot about generationally where we are here, because the parallels are very clear. I mean, when you look at the track, one former president tried to overturn democracy as it was in that country and was held accountable. Another president did the same here at home and wasn't, and had many opportunities, starting with the U.S. Senate. And everybody went, oh, not today. So, I mean, I don't know. I can't get excited about it because Americans aren't excited about it.